Hello everybody. In this video we are talking about three functions that are very useful for making the M files or the programs more interactive and more user friendly. The functions are related to displaying messages to the user or asking the user to input some values to use them in the calculations. The first function is called disp function. Let's say I have a variable h which is equal to 10, j which is an empty matrix, k which is a text. I would say this is a text, and then if I type disp, which is the first function h, it will display the value, just the value. But if you type display, it will type h equals 10, which is a very simple difference. If I do the same thing for j and here, so it displays j equals an empty matrix, and here it displays nothing. If I do the same for k, it will display the text directly, but if you type display, it will type this is a text, and k equals this is a text. So it's kind of a small difference between them, and they do the same job. I would personally prefer to use this function because according to what's or written in the documentation, that the display function is not going to be used in the future versions. So I would prefer to use this function, so it works now and works in the future, and you don't have to change your programs later when you use a future version. It seems here that this is a silly function because it does nothing, displays something that I already know, but it's gonna be way more useful here. You'll see why it's useful here. So I would clear everything here and then see what we can do in this M file. So the first thing in the M file is that we had this M file before. It uses the length, width, and height and calculates the area and the volume of a cuboid. And we already have the length, width, and height provided here, so it does nothing other than calculating the area and the volume. One thing that's going to be useful is to display a function or a message to the user asking or telling him what this program does. So we would say this program calculates the area and the volume of a cuboid. Okay, so if I if I run the file now, it says the program calculates the environment. We have semicolons here, that's why nothing showed up. I would first type clc clear and then run the program. So the thing that's different now is that displayed this message before. You can display more than one message. I can put one other disp and say that this please provide the length, width, and height of the cuboid of interest. Anyways, just any message. You type the same thing, everything is gonna work the same way you typed it here. You can leave an empty line between them by typing this and the space. So I'm now doing this here. So you see, you can put as many disp functions as you want. It doesn't do anything related to the calculations. The calculations are done as they are usually done. So this is, it's useful, but it didn't seem to be useful here because it already shows the message and the program calculates everything because it has everything in here. Which is kind of not as useful as it seems. The more useful part now, or it's going to be more useful when you ask the user to put the value or provide the values of the length, width, and height. And to do this, you can use another function that's called input. Input is the same syntax as the disp function. It's input and then a string between two brackets, and that's all. But it doesn't only display a message, it asks the user to provide the value, and that's why it waits for the user to put everything. And that's why also the input has to be named as or to have a name, and that's why you don't just put disp like or input like you put disp. You have to call it something. for instance here I would call L input and then type the message, please provide the cuboid's length. Okay, in centimeters for instance. Okay, and I would do the same thing for width and height, and here. Okay, so it's almost the same thing that we did before, but the only difference here is that it has to have a name because it's an input that you're providing. And now let's run the program and see what is the difference. First it did the same or showed the two messages, and now it's now waiting for my input. Behind my photo here you'd see it says waiting for input. So it says please provide the cuboid's length in centimeter. I type 100 or 10 and then the width 20 and then 30, and it calculated the area and the volume, and it's very helpful now because in the previous case when you have the length, width and height here in the M file as values, anytime you want to change these values you have to go back to or edit the M file itself. While in this case you just need to provide the values in the command window without need or with no need to go and edit the M file. One thing here that is not very nice is that you have no space between this and this, so it can be easily fixed by putting some spaces here and here, and this is gonna solve the problem of this, or there is no spacing here. The last thing we can do is to make the output more professional. Instead of having this as area equals and volume equals, I would prefer to have a text saying that the area of the cuboid is 2200 centimeters square. So it takes the value of the area and put it inside as a text. So I would not show them as they are now, and then disp a message saying that the area of the cuboid is, and then put the area here. So let's try this first and then run the program and see. So you see now it is leaving the space between these two or between the message and the input, and then 30. And you'd see that there is an error message. It says too many input arguments to the disp function, and this is because this function accepts only one input. So the way you do this is because we have already two inputs, and to fix this you can put this between brackets, and I can put more. I would put centimeters squared. So we have now the message that I'm expecting to see is that the area of the cuboid is area, which is 2200 in the previous case, and then centimeters squared. Let's run and see. 10, 20, 30, and then you'd see something very weird. This is a square, it's not the number. And I already have it here, which is the same area as this. And the reason this happened because this function either accepts a variable like the area and displays the value, or a text. And in this case it has a combination between texts and numbers or variables. And to solve this we can use the function that we said before, is to convert this from number to string, so that it sees the area as a string, not a number. I will run it again, and this is fixed now. So you have to make sure that everything that's put here is a string. If it's a number, convert it into string and put it here. We can do the same thing, put a message that displays the volume of the cuboid is number to string of the volume, and then centimeter cubed. Run it one more time, 10, 20, 30. So you have here the message saying that the area of the cuboid is, and the volume of the cuboid is, with the everything. And at the end I can display a message that says that thanks for using the program, and one more time, 10, 20, 30, and this is everything. So it's kind of, now if you see the program now and compare it to what we started with, it's way more interactive. You show the messages in the beginning, you showed or asked the user to provide the values, and then you show the output as a text. um, and again, the disp function does nothing, has nothing to do with the calculations. You put it as just a guidance, or displaying messages to the user with no relation to the calculations. Input has some relation to calculations, because it tells the user that you have to provide the values which we are going to use for calculations. So you have to make sure that it has a name that we're going to use as we used here. This is calculated from the value that the user provided. Width and height, the same thing. However, having the disp being put as a separate line to add a line here, it's kind of annoying thing, because you have to put one line for every line you want here. Which is not a good thing. The way you put a text here is very tedious. Putting a text with a number is not an easy way to do this. One thing that we didn't show now or today is that if you have a long text, it's gonna go as you're typing. It's not gonna move to the next line. So these are all some drawbacks to the functions that we're using now. And there is another function that's called fprintf. It's a very powerful display function. It can solve many problems for the moving to the next line, or adding spaces, tabs, anything. It's more useful, or it's more powerful, I mean, than the disp function. However, it requires some knowledge of how to use it, because it's not as straightforward as the ones that we displayed or showed today. So this is gonna be the topic of the next video. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video, inshallah. Goodbye.